of Community Board 9, Fred Baptiste, who had a conflict tonight. I am joined as well by Dante Armwine, who is our district manager at Community Board 9. I've been with Community Board 9 for about 5 years at this point. Dante, I think you've been with us for 3 or 4 years at least. And just to give you a sense of kind of like what it is that we are doing tonight, this is a overview of the budgetary requests that our district makes to the city. And so this is an annual process as a part of the city's overall budgeting process, right? So they want to hear from each district, what are your unique needs that you would like to have budgetary discernments allotted for. And so we begin this information collection process with the community in October. And so last month, we sent out a survey to the entire community. We received nearly 100 responses, 98 to be exact. What happens after we receive those responses is that we submit those responses and we clean up that report, and then we submit a more formal report. When I say we, I mean Dante, to the Department of City Planning, or DCP. From there, the OMB, which stands for the Office of Management and Budget, which is a mayoral office, gives us a formal response. And that is aligned with other city agencies. So OMB works with the other city agencies, whether it be sanitation or education, et cetera. And they provide us with a formal response, which ultimately is saying we will or will not fund kind of the projects that you are requesting. But there's another piece of this process as well, which is what we're here for tonight, which is to open up also a verbal conversation with members of the community. We only have two here with us aside from board members, but we are joined by several of our board members here. So Celeste Chase, Suki Chong, Althea Best, as well as Felice Robertson. So thank you all board members for being present here. And what we're going to do tonight is collect more public testimony to inform the report that we will submit, which will inform next year's budget. And so you can also, on the community board's website, find all of the responses historically that we have gotten to this process. I do want to just also share the context that historically we have received a fairly small amount of responsiveness to our requests. Right? We may make 100 asks and maybe 2 or 3 of those 100 asks is granted. Last year, what we identified as the top 3 pressing overall issues for our district, Community Board 9, number 1 is affordable housing, number 2 was infrastructure resiliency, and number 3 was youth and children's services. So just wanted to let you know that kind of like those were the top 3 areas that were identified. Again, you can find this information online. They respond with something like a 100-page response to our requests, but you can also see what each of those requests are and whether they are being granted or not. So I thank you for joining us in what is a process that is very engaging of the public. And we applaud you for participating in this process of making requests to the city around our district's greatest needs. So that has to do with your particular neighborhood, the neighborhoods that we all live in that make up District 9. And so with that, I'm just going to close my welcome and pass it over to Dante, who is going to lead us through a little bit more nuts and bolts of kind of what is made up of in the survey that we sent out, and talk you a little bit more through the process. Thank you, Dante, for being here.
Of course. Thank you, Primo, for stepping in for the chair. I want to thank everyone, all the board members who are able to attend, and all members of the public who are able to attend as well. I just want to note is that I'm the only staffer on this call, so sometimes I might have to let people in, so just bear with me. So moving right along, Primo, I'm going to make you a co-host just so people come in, you can just allow them in. All right, so Primo gave a brief overview of what we've done, how we've done it, and kind of how this process is rolled out. I'm going to share my screen so everyone can see this. Okay, you can see this? Okay, awesome. So I'm not going to go over that, the top slide, but part of this district needs statement goes line by line, issue by issue about the needs and budget requests that we have in our community district. Now, a lot of folks aren't too familiar with the budgeting process for the city of New York. And so what we did back in October is that we produced a survey that was sent out for the whole month. And again, as you heard, we did receive 98 submissions. But within the 98 submissions, each submission, essentially, you could answer up to 3 different questions. So the questions on the survey, if you weren't able to take it, was essentially describe the top 3 pressing issues that you see in the community district. And so some folks were able to put 3, some folks put 3, some folks put 2, other folks put 1. I was able to go through that survey and condense the information. And so I will explain and report out those findings in just a short second. But I wanted to show you this right here. So this is the difference between capital and expense. So one thing that, one of the requests that we often get, and I'm certain that it was a top request again, is a speed hump request throughout the district. Now, speeding is a major issue throughout the district. This is something that, we've seen on other district needs statement. We've heard from folks who have joined the committee meetings and so on and so forth. Now, how these priorities are essentially inputted to the Department of City Planning is if we're talking about speed humps, that would be a capital request. So a capital request is basically anything that it's basically a physical thing that you can purchase that will alleviate or address a certain issue. So buying speed bumps, the rubber ones, those would be capital requests. Programming for youth services, specific programming for small businesses, those types of requests would be expense. So you can see right here from this slide, I won't go through the whole slide, but this is about healthcare facilities. So you can see the first one is just to provide an expanded healthcare facility. That's very general. That's a capital expense. But if you were a little more specific in terms of, okay, you wanted to maybe provide programming for individuals who are living with HIV/AIDS. Okay, that's more expense programming. So I just want to give some clarity over the difference between capital budget requests and then the expense budget request. And so what I did with the survey is I went through all of the submissions that we received. It kind of determined, okay, what's expense, what's not. I won't go through all of it, but definitely for the purpose of this public hearing, I want to report out on the themes that I've at least seen from the survey, and I can only imagine, we'll get more testimony and content on those similar things. So I'm going to stop sharing now so I can do this. Actually, let me bring up, I'm going to share this screen so everyone can see. Please let me know if you can see this.
And for members of the community that are joining us tonight, and for board members as well, just want to encourage you to use the raise hand function if you have a question, as Dante is sharing, so we can make sure to address your questions. But there will be a portion of tonight that is open for commentary. Although, okay, I see Chester with a hand raised. Go for it, Chester.
I potentially will ask a lot of questions, so just tell me to slow down if not, if I do. So I understand that like capital, like just information. My twin brother works for the DOT, so I'm very familiar with the capital versus expense budget for New York City. And so 2 questions, like, is there like a set amount of money that you can get per community board in capital versus expense? I know the capital budget is much larger than the expense budget, and from a tax perspective, it's better to spend capital.
Right.
So is there an openness towards capital expenditure in the way that there might not be an expense?
To be honest, that question would be fitting for the director of OMB and the mayor because
okay.
funded. But yeah,
I think
I think it's a valid question, and
it's a valid question. Also one that maybe we could sort through kind of what has been granted in the past and take a look at whether we typically get more capital expenses granted or expense grants granted. I would also say, Chester, as you probably are aware, the city this year, everyone is talking about a fiscal cliff, and they've asked all agencies to make at least, what is it, 15% cuts now, 5% cuts across the board. And so we very much expect this to be a belt tightening year because the same request was made of our community board along with all city agencies.
Got it.
Keeping that,
So, sorry, just one follow-up question.
Yeah.
Is community board funding based on population, or is it equally divided? Like, is it? Well, obviously, I'm part of my question is lower income neighborhoods versus higher income neighborhoods, but is there kind of rules around that?
I would say this, speaking to my other colleagues throughout the city, not just Brooklyn, we all have a similar budget. The only thing that basically is different is the rent portion of our budgets. Obviously, you know, rent in Manhattan might be more expensive than certain places in Brooklyn. But for the most part, our expense budgets and our personnel services are all the same. And, you know,
and I think another way of answering this question, Chester, let me just clarify, if like community boards only get a budget to staff their offices. We don't get like a bunch of money so that we can provide services to the district, right? And so like the budget isn't broken out by like, we're going to give Brooklyn Community Board 9 3% of the total city's budget, right? Like this, the way that the city budget is distributed is to agencies more than it is to communities. And so I don't know whether that was kind of at the heart of your question, but
No, I get it. I mean, if we had 3% of the budget, that'd be fucking amazing. But like the like the I just wanted to make sure that there was like, it sounds nice that there's a city and like a city ordinance to have parity among districts. So that it was less a community board 9 question than like a city policy question.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for your question.
Thank you.
no,
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. So diving into the information from the survey and the submissions that we received back. Let me minimize this. Okay, so now I can see everything. All right, so again, I went through all of this, and let me just, so everyone knows what this is, education, libraries, and broke everything down basically according to our committee work. So our committees are broken down: economic development, educational libraries, environmental protection, but I added sanitation for that, health and social services, housing, zoning, and land use to make it simplistic, parks, rec, culture, public safety, transportation, youth services. So going through the information, I really want to touch on the items that were brought up the most. So the most complaints that were submitted via the survey, one, and this is in order, is the enforcement of unsanitary sidewalk conditions. That's definitely something that we've received in our office, email, phone, you know, folks coming into the office. Sidewalk, unsanitary sidewalk conditions is definitely something that like we heard constantly. And so we'll continue to work with DSNY. If you see unsanitary sidewalk conditions, please report them to 311 and then
Dante,
board office.
can I ask you just like a clarifying question on that?
Sure.
Is what's at the heart of unsanitary sidewalk conditions rats?
Yeah.
Or is it something else?
Yes. So I will break all of it. I'll break it down, but that's a fair question. That is no. Some individuals did submit complaints regarding rodents and rats, not as much as just unsanitary sidewalks, but it was reported on from members of the public. Again, next, accountability for owners of vacant buildings and storefronts. So this is something that we've heard over and over again. I want to make note, if I remember from the submissions, that a lot of folks who submitted this specifically were targeting Empire Boulevard with the dilapidated and blight with the buildings over there. And so accountability for these vacant buildings and of course storefronts with graffiti and people sitting outside of them and trash builds up. This was definitely on top of the list. And again, this is something that, you know, we have heard for some time now. Another, the third issue was the enforcement of alternate side parking. So essentially, folks would like to see alternate side parking enforced much more. Double parking, bottlenecking, all of this adds to congestion, traffic, noise, pollution on our streets. And so this was a main issue that I wanted to point out as well. And I'm hoping that, you know, breaking it down like this, you know, we'll be able to take it back to the board and have conversations. But I want to continue on with the list. The next one was the development of grocery stores and supermarkets. So throughout the whole survey, many people brought up the need for fresh produce, accessibility to a variety of foods. We have a very diverse district. And so, you know, produce and commodities on one side may not work for other folks on the other side. And so developing grocery stores and supermarkets was one of the main issues that was brought up in the survey as well. And attached to that was also, attached to many of those inquiries was essentially building them so they're closer to our older adult population. Yes. Another issue that was brought up often in the survey was an increase in police presence. Many folks brought up that they felt that there was, one, a lack of presence by the 71st precinct, but also they felt that there were a lot of homeless individual or unhoused individuals walking on our streets. And so that was another issue that was brought up. And I will note that a lot of those complaints were tagged to the Vital Brooklyn Psychiatric Project, but I wanted to note. Another issue, and this has definitely been ongoing even since my arrival at the board, which is the installation of traffic calming measures. So a lot of people submitted responses in regards to this. We've had well over 20 plus requests denied by the Department of Transportation for various reasons. But I think that we still have to put in these requests. We're working right now with our transportation committee chair to get DOT to come to the meetings to address some of these things. But just wanted to note that, you know, these traffic calming measures, traffic lights, speed cameras was a major issue from the community. Another one was also the installation of bike lanes, more specifically improving the bike network. Many of you all know this. A lot of the bike lanes stop at Eastern Parkway as they enter into Community Board 8. And so just having a full-fledged bike network that you know, is accessible for all was a major concern. And then the last two that were major concerns was increase in parking spaces. So note on this was also tagged to some of the Vital Brooklyn development, tagged to just development in general, not adding parking to upcoming developments. And then this was also in line with some of the sidewalk sheds that restaurants are still using in the parking lanes. So yes, those are all added parking. And so that was a major issue that was brought up in the survey. And then the last one that I would like to talk about was the creation of youth programming. A lot of folks really talked about after school programming. They're seeing a lot of our youth just, I guess, relaxing in the subway stations, or they're just out on the street kind of lounging. And so creating, you know, programming that could get our youth in the right spaces was another and a main complaint as well. something else I would like to just note is looking at the information, I was able to draw out a couple of themes. Food insecurity was a major theme from the submissions. Again, unsanitary sidewalks, businesses, either overflowing trash cans, or actually the overflow trash cans was the main issue, but speeding, many streets, a lot of folks actually put the streets in question. I didn't put that in there, but I have the raw data. But speeding on streets due to the lack of certain traffic calming measures was a thing. Another theme was actually a lot of folks wanted a community center in various places, but they wanted that community center to be free. I know that many people are familiar with Major Owens. There is a cost to go to Major Owens. So a lot of folks were interested in free programming at a community center, and not just for youth, but they also wanted the community center to also have adult programming as well. Another theme as pertains to transportation was, again, bike lanes, and the enforcement of local laws was something that I really wanted to bring up. And this was more attributing to bicyclists on the sidewalks and on the streets, not using bike lanes. So that's that. And then the last one, physical and our societal infrastructure, essentially just making sure that as we start this planning process and things are happening, that we actually have the infrastructure to take on, as we're building schools, making sure that there's enough safety agents to be able to get kids to our schools safely. Hospitals, making sure that the routes are safe, just making sure that we have the right type of infrastructure before we start building all these things throughout the community. So I'm going to just briefly go back through a couple of this, and then we will take testimony from any members of the board and of the public who are on, who want to add. I think Suki's hand is raised.
Dante, could you just go scroll past each category and let us look at it for a couple of minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Of course. So one of the
is it possible to share this at all? Oh, we don't even have a chat.
But, yeah, we don't have a chat. I'm definitely more than happy to share it with anyone who wants it. Email or call the board office tomorrow, and I will be more than happy to share it with you.
I definitely want you to go back and look at land use. I want to look at land use.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I never got a chance to submit anything
Okay.
As a chair, because I was so busy with these 3 citywide text amendments. So I just want to see what's there.
Understood. So,
and just to clarify for folks on the call too, the purpose of this next portion is essentially this is a part of the process where we are still collecting information for the budgetary request that we are going to submit to the city for District 9. So let us know if these issues resonate, if there are issues that are missing. So yes, ultimately we are kind of putting together a wish list for the city as a part of the budgeting process.
Right. So on the housing and zoning land use, I've kind of broken it down like this. So a lot of people didn't use a lot of description to describe specific things. So I kind of broke it down from the submissions. Just people wanted more affordable housing in general. Some of the submissions made it very clear that they were looking for affordable housing for very low to moderately low income households, also for middle and working class families. Some of the submissions also focused on affordable housing, creating affordable housing for older adults, because older adults would like to age in place. Let's see. Many actually talked about the development of supportive and transitional housing. From reading, if I remember correctly, essentially, don't let me misspeak. I'll go to the next one. And then there were a couple of submissions that focused on the preservation of rent stabilized units. So it was kind of a good touch of many different topics as it comes to pertains to land use zoning and housing.
Okay, got it.
Um,
So it's really more housing than zoning
yeah,
or land use. That's
yeah,
fine. I understand. So I mean, when it's the right time, I do have a couple of things I'd like to contribute on land use.
yeah. Send me an email.
Okay.
Yeah, send me an email. It's going to take me like a day or two to get this like to DCP. So,
Okay.
if anyone on the call, if you have additional submissions, I definitely would encourage you to email it. But if you can't do that, call the office, and we'll transcribe it. But yeah, send an email tomorrow. Definitely no later than Monday, so I can get it included. So just want to touch back on some of the other categories. Economic development, one of the suggestions was to apply for a NORC designation for our community district. We do have a lot of older adults who live in our community district. And so that could be something of benefit. I will explain what a NORC is at the end of the section. Give me a second. Another was, as you can see, a need for economic development to address vacant storefront shortages. I think that many folks on the call, if you are walking up certain commercial corridors, you're seeing a lot of vacant storefronts that also have graffiti and trash in front of them. People leave household trash and other things out in front of them. If you see that, please call our office. Well, submit a 311 and call our office. But this is an ongoing thing, and I definitely think that this is something that we can start working toward to address. Small business services, assistance with grants and marketing, creation of community activities and programming, the creation of a bid, and then investment in minority and women-owned business enterprises. So economic development, the submissions were actually pretty all over the place, which is really good. I think that we got some pretty significant data to be able to take back to that respective committee. For education and libraries, submission regarding that there is a lack of special education programs in our community district, and for families who have individuals who need these services, they have to go outside of the district to get it. Affordable childcare for children 3 and below, parking for school teachers. I put in this area. Another submission was for more basically community school gardens, which I think is great. And then another one is for the lack, someone had an issue with the lack of competitive school due to our schools being under-sourced. Environmental protection, again, the unsanitary sidewalk conditions was a main concern. Clogged drains and street flooding was also brought up multiple times throughout the survey. An increase in trash collection days was brought up. I think that that's a really good request. I don't know how feasible that'll be with agencies having to cut budgets. Additional trash cans, various patient locations throughout the district. Folks wanted to see more trash receptacles on certain blocks. Enforcement, again, of alternate side, improving air quality, rat and rodent mitigation is a major one. And that was tied mostly to unsanitary sidewalk conditions, not to development, to development. So mostly to the sidewalk conditions.
We got a few hands raised. Do you want to take questions now, or do you want to wait until you go through everything?
Do it now, because I can't see it. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Chester's got a hand raised, and Suki, I'm not sure if your hand is still raised.
Yeah, but I'll wait until after everyone else has spoken. It's fine.
Okay, Chester, go for it.
Your process question. What do the numbers in B mean?
The number of requests that we got for that one thing.
Got
Yeah.
it. So of
Yeah.
the
The frequency.
100 requests.
Exactly. Yeah, like the
10 of
frequency.
them were for sidewalk. Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
I
Exactly.
apologize. Good question. Thank you for that.
Yep.
All right. Suki, go ahead.
From land use perspective, I think that there is a need for more zoning education for the general public. This is something that I think we'd mentioned possibly in some past meetings, like possibly zoning workshops for people to really understand how zoning operates. Likewise, I think there are a lot of zoning compliance issues. It's very clear to me, looking as we've started this process of the zoning code review, that a lot of businesses in particular are not complying with use regulations and the need to apply for special permits. So I think there's a need for enforcement, but also for education, because a lot of people don't know what these rules are. There have also been consistent complaints and requests at our ULURP committee meetings about construction that people feel is too large or is having an impact on their light and air. As I've said in past district need statements, I think there is a need for preservation and for downzoning throughout the district. I would also say that there have been requests for a kind of comprehensive assessment of the environmental effects of development, of the as of right development on our district, because there's been a lot. And since most of it has not been pursuant to a rezoning, it's never the cumulative effect has never been reviewed. And that's, all of these categories, basically the environmental, the transportation, the sanitation and so on. And so I think, we've tried to talk about some of what that might be in my committee, but obviously we need a lot of information and a lot of help from the city agencies. I mean, even like, for economic development, the other night we were talking about the need for, if not DCP, then maybe SBS, to start looking at background conditions on some of these commercial corridors, like doing a survey of the vacancies, doing a survey of what the market rent conditions are like before looking at zoning text changes, because it's not clear that that's the issue. That's what I have for now. If I think of anything else, I'll email you, Dante. And I just want to also add my voice in support of, with respect to education and youth, after school programs to improve basic math and reading skills for public school students. This is a huge issue. People in my neighbors do not send their kids to public school in this district if they can possibly help it. It really, really impacts people's decisions about where they want to live. So yeah, that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for that. Let me get back. All right. So we were here, we were there. All right. So next up, just two last things on that were education and awareness surrounding environmental protection, green infrastructure, composting. Those programs are out there. It's connecting people to those programs. And then also education and awareness as it pertains to containerization. A lot of small businesses are, I wouldn't necessarily say struggling, but it seems that there seems to be an issue with the containerization and trash with small businesses. So educating businesses, letting them know, these are the policies, could be beneficial and hopefully prevent them from getting summonses in the long run. Moving on from the results, health and social services, expansion of mental health services was a general topic that a couple people had discussed. One specific was a support for the community fridge network, most specifically drivers for the network. So if anyone on here happens to know anything about that, let me know. But that was that. Development, again, of grocery stores and supermarkets, increase in public outreach to homeless individuals. Again, a lot of people are feeling that there's a lot of homeless individuals walking our streets. Connecting them with the right services, DHS, or breaking ground could be beneficial. Increase older adult programming. Yes, as I mentioned before, a couple of folks have mentioned older adult programming, specifically with with a community center. Services for individuals with disabilities, increase again in homeless outreach, and then access to healthy food options was brought up a couple of times. Moving on to Parks, Rec, and Culture, more friendly green space, installation of more trees was brought up a couple of times. I think that there's already currently initiatives for that, but like still, it's good that we're getting this. Again, the free community center, additional playground equipment. Clearly, that got chopped off, so I apologize. I can't remember which park it was. I apologize. Additional maintenance at parks in general. This is actually something that was brought up a couple of times, and I definitely want to roll into this. Something that we've been seeing, at least I've been seeing. I walk down Franklin Avenue every morning. What I see a lot of kids standing out smoking. If I even walk by Ronald McNair sometimes, and they're over there as well. So like they're leaving trash, they're leaving stuff at the park. So like the overall maintenance of the park is a major issue. So if you see any parks in the district that are like really need maintenance, please reach out to the board office so I can contact the ranger for that specific park. And then the last one for that category was to create infrastructure, to support local artists and the arts in the area, which could also again tie into the community center. As it pertains to public safety, a lot of, well, not a lot, but some submissions did highlight an increase in police presence. Again, a lack of police presence. People are feeling like there are a lot of homeless individuals walking our streets, and so just the lack of police presence overall. Another issue that was brought up, and this is just going to be ongoing, to be completely honest, is abandoned and unlicensed vehicles. I know that probably everyone on this public hearing has one of these on their streets. CB9 is working diligently with the NYPD. I went above the 71st precinct. Right now, my request is with Borough North. What we're going to try to do is hopefully do like a tow operation of some sort. But again, I can't speak for the NYPD and what resources they have, but I want everyone to know, like, we know this issue. It's rather frustrating, but if you still see abandoned or unlicensed vehicles, please submit a 311 and reach out to the board office. Some folks wanted a decrease in police presence, and then another individual wanted better community relations between the precinct and residents of the community. Transportation was a major category. A lot of people had a lot to say about transportation, as you can imagine.
Hey, Dante.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm your notifier of hands raised, and we have a hand raised by Felice and Suki. I'm not sure if this is a new hand or the old hand, but let's start off with Felice.
I'm taking my hand down.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, thank you, everyone. Yes, these abandoned cars has been an issue, and as you know, I work with the 71st precinct, and I also work with transportation. I spoke to a manager from the transportation, or should I say transportation agent, and we're speaking on where these cars are located, so they would have agents to come out and look at the area in which these cars are in, and they would take action. So I am presently speaking to a manager right now regarding these abandoned cars. All I need is all the locations, and he will write them down and have an agent to come out and do his investigation. And that would help the police department.
Thank you, Felice. So for anybody on the call, I guess what I'd suggest is share these locations with the community board office, and the community board office can work with Felice and with the precincts.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Right,
All right.
keep it rolling, Dante.
Thank you. All right, next up, transportation. Again, the enforcement of local laws, mostly pertaining to bikes on the sidewalk, bikes, mopeds on the sidewalks or the streets, not abiding by local laws or street laws. The installation of micro mobility lanes was another submission. The installation of traffic calming measures. Some people put streets, some people didn't, but 6 submissions came in with that. That is a hot topic in the district, and there's nobody else out there who wants to try to get this taken care of with the Department of Transportation than myself. It's going to be an uphill battle. I'm not even going to front about it, but we're on top of it. We're gonna make some movement on these things.
Dante, I wanted to let you know that sorry, I didn't notice this until right now. We also have a hand raised in attendees from Alicia Boyd.
Well, let's bring it. Give me a second. Here we can bring all of. I'm going to admit all of the.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dante.
Yeah. Okay. Please go ahead, Ms. Boyd.
I want to make a statement. I see that you're going through this section by section, and I don't have the time to go through this section by section. So I just want to make my overall statement. I think that needs to be more staff development for Community Board 9. I think that one of the major concerns that the community has is the fact that committees are run and people don't even understand the concept of, Robert's Rules of Order, chairs constantly interrupt and basically responds to every statement that someone says. There's no order unless whatever the chair order decides, and they constantly are changing. Robert's Rules of Order is not understood at all. Conflict of interest are not understood at all. And yet, so that means is that the residents in the community are constantly not being able to be represented so that their concerns and their needs are heard by the community board. So I think there needs to be more training for community board members. There needs to be also, you have other community boards who are currently doing, both Zoom and in-person hearings, allowing both residents who cannot make the meetings, but also are in person. So residents who can, that requires technology. And I don't see why Community Board 9 has not taken the opportunity to engage in that type of technology and instituted it, forcing people either like at community board, either to attend a general board meeting, you have to do it in person, you can't do it via Zoom, and which would be beneficial to people who can't not attend. And also the way that you continue to.
Can you please finish up your testimony?
Can I finish, please?
See, go ahead, Ms. Boyd. Go ahead, Ms. Boyd.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the rudeness. There's no time limit for my being able to talk about the needs. So
you're good to go. Definitely. Go ahead and finish.
Why do I have to be interrupted by Dante, the district manager? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You go to other community boards, they let people speak. Not our community board. Our community board, we always got to interject. We always got to say, what we want residents to say and how long we want them to say it. Thank you. This is a hearing. I would like be able to proceed. Okay. Now, I also believe that there needs to be training by the staff. Their staff training. Dante and his staff need to be trained on how to treat the public, how to treat board members. Dante is constantly being rude. He's rolling his eyes. He's always sucking his teeth. He's always talking negatively about the community boards and about the residents and their responses. That's inappropriate. He should not have a position about how we speak. We are the community. We have a right to be angry. We have the right to object. We have the right to agree. We don't need a district manager using his facial expressions and his mic to interrupt and insert his own opinion. So there needs to be some training for staff members on how to work with the public and understand that this is a public place. This is a community board where the community should have the right to speak and not be interrupted. So those are the three things. We need to have technology for the hybrid meetings. Money needs to go to that. Community Board 9 needs to set aside money for that. And there definitely needs to be staff training as well as training for the community boards who are coming in on Robert's Rules of Order. I don't see that. It says training for community board members, but basically in Robert's Rules of Order, because Robert's Rules of Order basically are how you run a committee. So that would be really important. And staff training on how to interact with the community and not be abusive with the mic or the mute button. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. We appreciate your time and your comments. I see that Chester has a hand raised. So Chester, please feel free.
In my limited 53 minutes experience, I thought Dante has been great in leading this meeting. But
that's your opinion, not mine.
Yes, it is. I said it.
All right,
please,
then.
Ms. Boyd, let him finish, Ms. Boyd. Please, please let him finish, Ms. Boyd. Thank you.
You don't need to come behind me and talk about how great Dante is. He wasn't great to me.
Okay.
That's the point. You don't care how
Ms.
people.
Boyd, please let him finish, Ms. Boyd. Thank you.
Caring about how everyone's treated
Ms.
at
Boyd,
this
please let him.
event, not just you.
Understood. We certainly definitely all have different experiences and we have space for different experiences and we respect that. Chester, please continue.
I just wanted to, I don't know if this is something that's ever come up, but what I've noticed in this neighborhood is that I feel like some of the like cause, and these are kind of like symptoms, that the traffic lights are really poorly timed. And so like, I feel like I see people speeding because they're like, oh, I was just stuck in a red and then I'm going forward. And I just wanted to add that. I feel like that's a thing.
Thanks for your comment, Chester.
Thank you.
Make sure that that's represented here as well. I'm just checking to make sure that there are no other hands raised at this point. I see a few thumbs up coming for Chester's suggestion, but I don't see other hands raised at this moment. Dante, did you want to continue through this list? And then we can hold space for any final comments.
Yeah, almost finished. Okay, so again, back to transportation. More submissions about the bike lanes, improving the overall bike network. Again, enforcement was a major issue on many different things throughout the survey. Filling outstanding potholes and broken sidewalk request was a request. Installation of traffic lights, increased parking spaces, increased lighting on streets, street lights, not traffic lights, major one. If you all submit those requests, make sure you send them to the board office as well. Installation of electric car charging stations, installation of commercial loading zones, which is, I believe, already taking place throughout Brooklyn. And then the poorly timed public hearing. And then to end the transportation section, a couple of submissions highlighted the need to address fare evasion at the Prospect Park Station. I would also add Franklin Avenue to that. an overall expansion of the subway, and then the lack of ADA accessibility for our community, for the stations in our community district specifically. And lastly, the youth services section, there were some submissions to expand the SYEP program. I believe that they did expand it, but we participate in SYEP. Yeah, it needs to be overhauled. Life skills and conflict resolution for youth, creation of youth programming, and again, the cost of affordable childcare. So with the survey, a lot of folks who submitted their submissions weren't all one topic. And, you know, I'm very pleased to see that when it went out, people filled it out. People who were able to fill it out, filled it out. I definitely think that this is the appropriate process for soliciting the public and getting feedback on what the problems are in the district. Also makes it much easier to condense the information. But with that, I'm finished going over the report.
Great, Dante. I just want to thank you for putting this all together. I know that it's a lot of work to compile all of this and also to get it out to the community. And so we appreciate that and also appreciate this space held. I see that there are two more hands, one from Suki, and it's maybe a lingering hand from Chester. There we go. It's re-raised. So Suki and Chester, please feel free to share any thoughts that you have. We're probably gonna close soon, so this is the last opportunity. Also keeping track of the attendees list. So if anybody has a hand raised or needs anything, feel free to hop in. I'd say let's start with Suki, and then we'll go to Chester.
I have something to add on transportation. The potential expansion of dollar van routes, because I know those are controlled by the TLC. The Flatbush route doesn't go all the way into downtown Brooklyn, like all the way up to the courthouses, which it would be nice if they did. There might be a reason they don't, but if they could, that would be nice. Also, I just came out of the Vital Brooklyn hearing where they were talking about bus issues and traffic issues going along that B12 route east to west. And so I wonder if they've considered dollar van routes along that route instead of or in addition to public buses, because I think they've really alleviated the congestion and the wait times for buses on Flatbush.
That's an interesting one. I wonder how one gets in contact with the comptroller of dollar van routes, but that is definitely an interesting solution to traffic problems. So we'll note it. I wonder if the city's in contact with them. Probably. Thank you for that, Suki. We'll go next to Chester, and then we have Celeste bringing us home.
I just a general question, like, and one comment. What is the actual sphere of influence? Like, because I see like we do need better supermarkets, and my comment being like, it's crazy. It feels like the prices in this neighborhood are higher than other neighborhoods, which maybe that's something we have more influence on. But like, can this group really bring new supermarkets? Like, what influence would we have there? And I don't mean that to be negative. I just mean like, what can we do?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think that it's one that we grapple with as well, right? Like through this process and also through other processes, how can we influence outcomes? So I think that we are one public body and there are lots of public bodies, right? So I think some of these district need statements are also viewed by our public officials. So when we think about our city council members, our state assembly members, right? Like we want to make sure that we're distributing to them as well, so that they are also seeing kind of what community residents are saying their greatest needs are. So in many ways, this is us making a public statement about what our needs are. A part of that solution is the city saying we can divert dollars towards XYZ thing. In my experience, we usually see dollars distributed by the city for smaller things like sanitation solutions, like more trash cans or more speed bumps or more stop signs, right? Influencing a grocery market coming to a neighborhood is something that is probably going to require a larger sphere of influence. But I think that the district needs statement can be a comprehensive community informed, community written statement about the changes that we'd like to see in our community. Is OMB going to influence all of those changes? Definitely not. But we do have a statement that we walk away with, which can then be shared with other parties. So I hope that that kind of answers your question, Chester.
Well, that's great, and I guess like that was my question. Really, is like it feels like private industry is involved in that, so it's like city, but like is there well?
There might be like some
I
like
would say that enough
zoning suggestions, right? That like could come out of a city council member's office, or like if we want more commercial spaces for places like supermarkets, that might be something that could help influence a change. But I don't have all of the answers as to how we get more supermarkets into the community. But I do know that it will take more than just the community board alone.
And so, small thought, maybe my question about prices is anecdotal, but like because I'm 100%, I'm fairly convinced, and I'm willing to do my own research. But like, is that something that the community board would do? Is like, hey, like Better Business Bureau or something like that. We feel like there's discrimination in pricing from the private market here. Is that something that the community
It's
board?
something that could come out of the community board. I would say that like some of that. So I would suggest you to come to a community board meeting, but also just to check the district, the Community Board 9's website for our committee meetings. This is something that would probably live in the Economic Development Committee. So that's one that deals with business development in Community Board 9. And so that committee could opt to put out a public statement from Community Board 9 about pricing variations from neighborhood to neighborhood, right? And so like that could be something that we do, and that could go to public officials, et cetera. So yes, that can happen in the community board, but would happen inside of committee more than anything.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Sure thing, Chester. Okay, next, I believe we were going to move to Celeste, and then I think we have Felice, and Suki may have a new hand raised as well.
Hi, so I have a couple observations, and one is a request that is similar to one that's been made in prior years, and I even think it's still within some of the documents that I'm looking at, but the request is for an update to the auditorium, and I think it's PS 61, which is on Empire Boulevard, and that's been something that has been requested year after year after year, and there seems to be no traction on it. But so I would request that too, because I think it's important for students to know that they are worthy of investment. And so that's something I think that we should continue to push for, but maybe in a more targeted way. And so I've been trying to, for years, really understand this process and understand what we've gotten from the city based on all these requests and whether or not there is equity. So in other words, are we treated the same way as another community board or other community boards in Brooklyn and throughout the city? And it's hard to do a comparison for sure, but one thing that I'm noticing by looking at the last year's information, I really can't tell what's been funded or not funded. Most of it looks like it's either a no or more information is needed from the community board. So there's so many different things in there that really don't lead to any type of clarity as to what is the outcome of this process. And so I can go through and look through all these different things, but really this document is not very helpful from a community perspective. So we need to really see, and I'm not sure if this will ever happen, but it's something that I would suggest to see from year to year what has actually been funded. Not what, we request some additional information from the community board. I don't know if the additional information has ever come from the community board or not. So we can't even tell whether or not the follow-up that was requested has been done to get any of these budget items. A lot of the items, as mentioned by others, are items that private industry, there are so many other things, and they're more aspirational, but there are certain things that we as a community board could probably target and really put some type of pressure on the city. I know it's going to be very difficult in a budget crisis right about now, but to fund some of these things. But this really, the way this is done, it's not really that helpful to the community.
And like I said, I've looked through all of this, and there's really nothing I can see that was funded. And like I said, I can't see where there was follow up. A lot of it says that it's out of our control. We need the state to do the the lights and so forth, or the budget is set by the police department, so you can't get more crossing guards, and it goes on and on and on. But there must be things in here that we got funded over the years, and I think that there should be information about that that's more accessible than looking through an 80-page budget report. I know it takes some legwork, but I think the community does deserve that type of clarity.
Thank you, Celeste.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. I think, in my experience, what I've seen is that the city council discretionary budgets are utilized, and there's oftentimes a participatory process through which city council members can collect projects, and whether it's school playgrounds, trash cans, etc. We've certainly partnered with city council members in the past to bring small expense items to the neighborhood. A lot of the trash cans that you see in recent years were added in partnership with our city council members. So I think I don't disagree with anything that you said. And I do also think that this district needs statement helps us in partnering with maybe more accessible budgets in the city. But want to make sure. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Was that Celeste or?
Yeah, it was Celeste. Pretty much just one last point on that is that that's great that the city council members have given trash cans and so forth, but shouldn't we have more documentation on that? So shouldn't the board and the community know for fiscal year 2023 or 2024, whatever it is, councilman so-and-so's office provided 50 trash cans, so-and-so provided this, so that we can actually see what we're getting as a community. We really don't know it in any real meaningful way that is accessible to everyone in the community. That's the point that I'm making, because when you look at the flyer, we talk about equity, but we don't know what equity means if we don't even know what's going on in the community in a more holistic way. And I understand that there are trash cans here, there are different things here and there, but that's really not helpful to kind of understand the fuller picture. But thanks for enduring my conversation. But I hope that it's not just conversation, that there's some action, which is really to have a more coordinated approach, whether it's the CB9 office to actually come up with lists, to keep a running tallies of what things have been provided to the community year by year. So at least we know that. Thank you.
Celeste. Felice.
Yes, I just wanted to add, if we could please, that we need to add more schools. We have all of these new buildings being constructed, but I don't hear anything about schools. You have people having children and babies and, but there's no schools. There's a young lady that is connected with us right now. Her name is Pamela Payne. She's from DOE. She can elaborate even much further in what I'm discussing here with you, adding more schools. And in the schools that we already have, we do need to add more programs and more skillful programs, such as electronics, engineer, something that will hold the interests of our children, and also teach them, how to, take care of themselves, instead of having these programs after school where you have to pay for them. Because once upon a time, these free programs were offered in the schools. I even got my skills from within the schools, the high school, where I was a computer, I could have been a computer programmer. I was a secretary. This is what I do now. Okay, this should still be offered in these schools. That should be in the list. Teach our children how to take care of themselves in school, in high school, because we cannot afford it outside of that program. Can we do that?
We can certainly add it to the list. Absolutely.
Okay, and if you could please, this young lady that's from DOE, Pamela Payne, she can even elaborate further.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear
This
you.
is.
Absolutely. We've met before,
Thank you.
Pamela. Good to see you again.
Yes, thank you. I guess my passion is my passion is, if you educate a parent, you educate a child. And I think I heard earlier that someone mentioned that our school system is not the best that it could be. And in saying that, we combine our education and our youth committee, correct?
Yes.
We
Yeah.
did that, right? So in doing that, my question becomes, what kind of relationship do we have with the Department of Education? Or do we
Yeah,
have one?
we do. So we have a relationship with the district superintendent for District 17, who is actually a regular guest at our committee meetings.
Does that include the high school?
I believe so. Yeah, for District 17.
Question. That's a good question. I'm not sure if it's middle schools and elementary schools or if it includes high schools. I think you're right, and I think it doesn't include high schools.
That is correct. It does not include our high schools. So we're looking at K-8, but we're not including our K-12. So, and then in every New York City public school system, you have a youth council on all of these boards. Do we have relationships with them?
We actually have a high school student who is a community board member this year.
Excellent. So we can do some, you have your SYEP program.
That's correct.
How do we get that in our community? And we also have Mega Evers. So how do we include what's in our community to help our community to address some of the issues and concerns around education in our community?
Yeah, so I'm not the chair of the education committee or the youth services committee anymore, but we have a great chair of that committee who is Sol Query. And so I know that Sol works a lot in the local community and has for a long time. She runs her own nonprofit here. I would encourage.
I know who Sol is.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to connect directly with Sol, and I'm sure that you can make something happen.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Ms. Payne, for joining and for your comments and for always being a part of moving us forward.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Okay, and Suki, want to make sure that we are able to hear from you.
One last thing. It's been on our top 3 list before, I think, but the sanitation garage on New York Avenue. Are we gonna get some funding to expand the garage so that all the trucks can be parked inside instead of on the street? As Celeste said, the follow-up, and if it's not happening, or even if it is, one suggestion I have maybe would be for you to work with your fellow district managers to get an idea of which projects in which districts did get funding, so that we can understand, both why certain districts got funding and why some didn't, or just to, sort of like keep score, see where we are. What was the total, but if you can like print a little chart to say like who got funded, what was the agency's total capital budget, total services budget, and I agree with Celeste that, when we ask for things or when promises are made, we should get things in writing. Like, how many times a week are we supposed to be getting litter pickup on our corridors? Because I feel like I've heard we're getting pickup twice a week, twice a day, 6 days a week on Flatbush Avenue. But I'm not really, I'm not really sure if that's happening. And so, yeah, I think just the follow-up and the tracking and being able to compare to other districts would help, I think.
Thanks, Suki. It sounds like a theme is certainly present that we would like to do a little bit more of a zoom out metadata kind of approach to what has been granted here locally in the past, what has been rejected, and what is happening in other districts. So that message is loud and clear and appreciated. I don't see any other hands raised at this point, and I think that we have kind of reached a natural close. I want to appreciate everyone who came, shared, asked questions, and participated in this process, which is just important for us to understand what our greatest needs in the district are. So I wish you a really good night. If I don't see you before the holidays, have a great holiday, have a great new year. And for those of you who would like to be more engaged with our community board, really encourage you to attend our meetings or attend a committee meeting that may be of interest to you. All of the information can be found on our community board website. And I want to give a special thanks to Dante for overseeing this process, for hosting this meeting, and to each of you again for participating. Hope you have a good evening. Take care.
Thank you. Thank both.